Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible? Is that possible?
It was hippies and yippies, miniskirts, hip huggers, beads and fishnets, walks in space, falls from grace.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
It was music pulsating with the morals of youth, baby boomers who believed they were the revolution.
This was a time when fiery energy, spirit, and recklessness seemed to prevail.
When the rice paddies and jungles of Vietnam became the ultimate test for thousands of American boys.
And just when things seemed at their very worst, our nation's leaders, symbols of hope, were falling under an onslaught of gunfire that seemed to break our nation's back.
But as the dark smoke was hovering over riot-torn cities, a glistening ray of light was stretching high into the San Antonio sky and out across her inner city. It was an idea, a rebirth, a hope called Hemisfair.
Symbolic of that reach is Hemisfair 68's theme structure, the Tower of the Americas. As it dominates the skyline in 1988, it dominated the drawing boards and models 25 years ago.
This monumental vision begins at La Vallita, the little village of old San Antonio, upstream along the river and beside a quarter-mile-long extension of the river to a massive new convention center complex, then onward to occupy 92.5 acres with a magnificent commemorative World's Fair dedicated to the contributions of people of many nations over the past 300 years.
It is part of an idea enthusiastically guided to reality.
The idea of introducing San Antonio to the world a little bit was very appealing to all of us. I think that not only were we going to introduce San Antonio to the world, hopefully we might learn a little bit more about the world ourselves through this, and I think we sure did.
Marshall T. Steves, who would eventually become president of Hemisfair, began to help awaken what he and others called a sleeping city. But it was Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez and businessman Bill Sinkin who got the ball rolling. Gonzalez took the lead.
Said, I'd like to have a fair, a trade fair, or a World's Fair. And I said, well, what do we have to do? He said, you do it. Get a group of men together, talk to them. Let's get the business community behind us and see what we can do to do something to give San Antonio an importance, particularly for its role in gateway to Mexico.
Raising money was the first order of business after a feasibility study said go. Sinkin began to recruit a team of movers and shakers from throughout the community. Marshall Steves was one of the first people he contacted. A zealous fundraiser, Steves made the initial underwriting contracts. He went to the bankers. Tops on his list was Frost Bank President Tom Frost, Jr., who quickly offered $100,000.
I said, Tom, I'm here for the underwriting and what we need, and you're first because you're going to have to be the bell cow in all of this. And he was very well. He said, I've been thinking about this, Marshall, and it's just great, and I'm going to help you, and we're going to get this thing done, and the Frost National Bank will subscribe to $100,000. And I said, Tom, you're 70% too low. and he sort of sat back in his chair, and with the next day he called me and he said 170, and I showed him what I was trying to do, and he said 170, we'll go with it.
Marshall's attitude, he had it down what he knew we had to make to get to the $6 million, and he was unrelenting in it.
In less than 6 months, the underwriting campaign had reached its goal of $6 million. Next, a bond election. With overwhelming support, the issue passed. $30 million was committed to the fair. As for site selection, the Hemisfair Committee, which met each week for 6 years before the fair, felt downtown San Antonio was an ideal location. So this is where the fair settled, on 92 acres in downtown San Antonio. The land was bought with $12.5 million in federal urban renewal funds. Though for the most part they were overshadowed by the positives, the fair did have its downside.
There were problems, construction problems. Selection of an architect became a problem. The site had some discussion. The tower had a lot of discussion about it. Some wanted it, some didn't.
Another negative, as a result of not enough advance ticket sales, the fair had to go through its third underwriting just before the gates opened. But they did open, with the emphasis on Latin America and the theme, a confluence of civilizations.
150 years ago, the Spanish first opened up this wilderness in pursuit of a dream.
Congressman Gonzalez worked untiringly as the fair's liaison with the federal government. Besides helping get the urban renewal funds, he brought what is now the federal courthouse to the fair. During Hemisfair, it was the Confluence Theater. And he got Hemisfair sanctioned by the Bureau of International Expositions. Hemisfair 68 would be a world's fair.
With the theme selected and the political cloud of Mayor McAllister and Governor Conley, Hemisfair 68 was well on its way.
Now it was time to start building, and there was no time to lose. Stay with us. We'll be right back.